talked to Katerina today, and she sent me a file that she had done. I think it was maybe February-ish. That was sometime after we got together with Mayor Lovely Warren and Katerina was there at that time too, and we talked about child safety zones. That'll be something I just started looking at it a bit. There was some good data on how far children in Brighton had to walk. Hi, Fantasia, how you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. Nice of you to join us.
How you doing, Mary?
Good. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
Hope you had a few other people join you yesterday too when you jumped the gun.
I have so many Zoom meetings, John. I have to leave early for a meeting at Baden Street.
Uh-huh.
It's just, well, at least people care. That's the important thing.
That's right.
Hey, John,
Yes.
if you make me a co-host, would I be able to help you with letting people in?
Yeah, if I can figure, I should have checked it out since the last time we were on, and I didn't find the easy way to do it.
Okay.
W chat spotlight for everyone. Make host. There it is.
Oh, no, you don't want to make me a host. I think you...
Yeah.
Oh, you're now a host.
Yeah, if you if I yeah, it's there. Allow to. Let's see what happens if I make you a host. You've run Zoom meetings before, right?
Yeah, I've never done the forcing people or allowing people, forcing people into the meeting.
Admitting.
Allowing people in.
If it's in the waiting room, when you click on participants,
Yeah.
it should allow you to enable the waiting room.
Oh, you're good.
I've been using Zoom for quite a long time.
Okay,
So when you go that, you can stop, and you can actually get to it too when you click the chat box. So if you click the chat box and those three dots there, you see an option where you can uncheck the waiting room. That way everybody can just pop in. You don't have to.
Good.
I made you host.
Okay.
So if you...
People are just going to be able to come in now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Did you change something?
Yeah, I did.
Ah, okay.
I did what Fantasia told me to do.
Oh, good, good. Well, I can
Yes,
wipe my
take a
hands of
rest.
the whole thing.
Fantasia's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got, since we haven't had any new people ring the bell, why don't we go around and introduce each other and say what groups we're affiliated with. I'm John Boutet, and besides the Southwest Common Council Education Committee, I'm also involved with the Rochester Coalition for Public Education, the 19th Ward Schools Committee, and I get into some of the meetings for the AQE Citizens Action Group. So, Leah?
I'm Lila. I'm a student at Niagara University. My field, leadership and policy.
Okay. And
I'm Lee Loomis. I lead a tutoring team at Dr. Walter Cooper Academy, school number 10. We haven't been employed for a couple of years, but we're looking forward to opening up the possibility and getting some training for our tutors to become online virtual tutors for our scholars at Dr. Walter Cooper Academy.
Good.
Wonderful.
And Fantasia?
Well, my name is Fantasia Hunt. I represent the event services for the World Mission Society Church of God in the Rochester chapter. We're really involved when it comes to the city of Rochester and in the community, and we work hand in hand with John McMahon. So any of the projects that is needed and what's the need for the city, we always like to just be involved and see where we can give the helping hand.
Wonderful.
Great, that's
Hey,
great.
Fantasia, could you put your information in the chat so I can copy it and put it in the minutes? Thank you.
Yeah, and if, are you missing phone numbers and addresses for anybody?
For Layla.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. If you could put that in the chat also. And let's see, Mary, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Mary Coffey. I live in the Browncroft area. However, I am co-chair of the North Woodinville Association. And we are, you know, as anybody else, realize the necessity and the importance of education, especially in the city of Rochester, because it's the first step out of poverty. And we must all work hard to raise level. We're very low, our educational system, and our children all deserve better.
Great, thank you. And we've got two new folks joining us, Amy Maloy and Courtney Thomas. Amy, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, foremost, thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm Amy Maloy. I am one of the Rochester City School District School Board Commissioners, and I have 4 children in the school district at East High School and World of Inquiry. I'm also a teacher. I teach at Brighton High School. I've been teaching for 23 years. So, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Thank you for coming. And Mia Sinclair.
Hello, I guess we're introducing ourselves.
Yeah,
How are
we were
you?
just going
How
around.
are you? Mia Sinclair, Community School Site Coordinator at school number 16.
Great. Nice to see you. And Courtney?
Both Amy and Mia, could you put your contact information in the chat?
Yes.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Courtney Thomas, you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hey everyone, my name is Courtney Thomas. I am the Executive Staff Assistant in the Mayor's Office, and I will just continue to be joining SWCC calls in general.
Great.
Overall, I'm just here to listen and learn and report back to the Mayor.
Okay, well that's what we hope we get, because we've been wanting to make sure he's in touch with everything we've been trying to do. And so I'm really glad to see you here, and at future events also. And let's see, and then that leaves Eleanor to introduce herself.
Okay, I'm the scribe, and I represent Catholic Family Center's Youth Build program, and I'm also with Rotary Southwest.
Great. Okay. I guess we're still waiting to see what the outcome is for the what you folks end up deciding as far as approving the proposals that the superintendent has put forward as far as closing certain schools and reconfiguring things. When is that decision going to be made, Amy?
Initially, it was supposed to be in February. I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but I think it's safe to say that the proposal, as written at this time, is not supported by most of the commissioners. I would say that 5 out of our 7 commissioners are not in support of any part of this plan, especially relating to RIA, School 7, School 54. I think they're back to the drawing board, quite frankly, and I think there's going to be a lot of pressure from all of the commissioners to have the district revamp the plan. And although we understand where the district is coming from, we also want to make sure that there is enough community input. Families need to have a say in which school. If we do need to close schools, they need to be very much involved in that process. And we feel like the initial plan did not include the parent voice. And did not include really a realistic look at some of our neighborhoods, and also didn't, at least this is where I'm coming from, did not include how we're going to help curtail this drop in enrollment that we're seeing. And it didn't really address the managed choice policy, nor did it address the want for neighborhood schools. And I think that we need to, I know that we're having some work sessions as a board to work with the cabinet on developing a better plan and to get community feedback and input. But I think at this point, sorry, I'm losing it's been a long day. At this point, I think that plan as written is off the table, and we're going to be coming back to, we're back at square one, I believe. Yeah, I'll have more information shortly. I'm reading through some stuff that we just received from the superintendent. How they calculated the maximum class sizes is not acceptable. This is going to be something you'll hear us talking about at our upcoming meeting. They used contract limits as, I won't get into all of that now, but I think the data that they presented is not clear cut, and we need to take a deep dive into that data before any, we don't like the explanation so far, or at least I don't.
Yeah, I was leery of reading through what I read through, that it was seemed a little bit of an extreme jump. If we're worrying about losing parents, I think this was disruptive enough that we'd lose some people just from the disruption from this event. Absolutely. And I think another, and not to monopolize the time that we have here together, but I think a major concern is, after many of the commissioners went to these schools, looked at the data given to us by the building principals, it became really apparent to me, at least, that we need to include our building leaders in this decision-making process as well. They know what's happening in their building. The fact that we would even consider closing programs that are among the most successful in our district, it's asinine in my mind. School 7 is one of our strongest performing schools in this district, and for special education in particular, they have some of the highest success rates. And so my opinion was that for at least that school, we needed to not only expand, they have a pre-K, they have 3 strands of pre-K there, but parents can't choose kindergarten as an option because they only have 2 strands of kindergarten. So the way that the school is structured right now, there's no room for growth, even though they are nowhere near capacity, and their building principal has asked that they want more students. And they draw from the neighborhood. That's exactly what, similar to School 16, you're drawing from the neighborhood, and you need to be able to tap into that. That's exactly where we should be going. My fear is that that proposal is essentially breaking down. It's allowing charter schools to come in and swoop up and take our students. And I don't want to create a system that allows that to happen. So I know I'm speaking for myself in some regards here, and as a parent in the district, but the plan was not sufficient, and I don't think any of us will be supporting it. Well, I'm delighted to hear that, because I had kind of the same impression. And an awful lot of the things that the school district has done over the past many years, really, you kind of wonder, was that done to intentionally weaken the city school system and favor charter schools? You know, the having
I certainly hope not.
having our district basically sending most kids a mile and a half away to a school seems like an invitation for weakening neighborhood schools and consequently weakening neighborhoods, because you'd like to have your, you know, school 16 or whatever school it is be the beacon for the neighborhood around it, and you like those kids to go back out into the neighborhood and take the friendships they made at school and go back and, you know, play with those same kids, get the families to know one another, and have them all be ready to go to help the school if there's any problem. You know, you want to knit all these things together, and the managed school choice, or the 1.5 mile busing rule at any rate, is doing the exact opposite.
Exactly. And I think in particular, the plan for RIA, after I went and visited there and spoke with their principal, we also have to take into consideration all of the community organizations that are already serving our students in the vicinity of given schools. And I realized that RIA might be only using about 5% of the building at Jefferson. But at the same time, if you look at Catholic Family Services or any of the other organizations that serve RIA, they're all located right there. And so in a way, it's become a neighborhood-based school for those students and families. And so I think many of the commissioners are also interested in having us perhaps look at ways that we can make that a K through 12 school again, despite what the state has, you know, asked us to do, which was to get rid of right now it's only a 7 through 12 program. But I think that there are ways that we can expand the programming for those students and for that population.
What does RIA stand for?
It's the Rochester International Academy.
Mary, you?
Amy, you're just one of the commissioners here, and I thank you for being here tonight. But I listened to Malik Evans' last speech, or a conference or whatever, when he was on television. And there was just a great breath of hope coming here. But he used the word accountability. And I guess I'm asking Amy, you and the other commissioners and the people involved, and us too, when are we going to call for accountability out of our city school districts? It's one of the lowest in the nation, and it's our children. It's a future that is just losing here, and it's many will never get out of poverty. So what is the thought of accountability and raising the scores? That's where there should be a lot of emphasis on, and how can we as citizens work to improve that for our children of Rochester?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Accountability has to be there. And for a long time, I think it hasn't. But we also have to look at what does that term really mean and how does that translate to action in our schools? So accountability for some people is, you know, maybe higher test scores. Our kids are they're getting tested to death, you know, across the board in our schools.
And they're failing.
And they are failing. And I'm, you know, so that's one piece of it. But I think also accountability in the sense of our community is failing as a whole. And I certainly can't speak for the mayor, but, you know, if we look at violence in our community, if we look at housing costs, it's a failure all over, and it's all intertwined. You know, everything is related. Many of our, you know, our students are some of the poorest students in the nation. You know, I think the third poorest nation or third poorest district in the nation.
The lowest.
Accountability is important, and we need to design an infrastructure that can give families and students access to affordable housing, give students and families access to affordable childcare. You know, like.
But Amy, They're not going to be able to buy a house like I had a chance to buy a house.
Oh yeah, of course.
Because they're not going to have the education to give them the tools to get a good job.
Right.
And buy a house wherever they want to buy a house, not where the government tells them they have to live.
Of course.
So education is the key, Amy. And what can we do together? I used to teach many years ago. And boy, we were watched. You had to perform and everybody was held accountable. But I don't know what's happened. But I think we really have to, for the sake of our children.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think that we
Stick
have,
together.
Hi everyone.
yeah,
You know,
Lentory.
listening to what you said, Amy, there's something that stands out to me, and this is in regards to charter schools being in a position of takeover. I know that it is easy to point to this and point to that, but I think that what bothers me most in some of these gatherings is that, you know, there is so much excuses given, and sometimes the obvious people want to just go over it, you know, and gloss it over. But all of it to me seems that it's up under a system. And so I say this to you and anyone who will hear. This is what we look at when it's systematically done to take away things from areas, and more especially from our children. And we can't just say it's because of they're impoverished or because of the neighborhoods or this or that. Because like you said, they're closing some of the most successful schools. That's number one that stands out to me. And number two, and most importantly, maybe there's a lot of us who don't pay attention to information that goes on in this country where there are school districts that have some of the same issues and concerns that Rochester has, yet they're performing. So that to me is something that we got a new school board in there.
Yeah.
And so accountability goes across the board. You just can't, you know, say what can't be done. And when it is in full awareness, at least for me, there are areas where it is being done and there are good results.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Fantastic. Yeah.
And if you
Amy, I'm sorry, go ahead. I just want Amy to put her contact information in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do that again.
Amy, and you need people to support you and to say we have to have accountability, we have to be here for the kids, we have to raise our level. I'm sure we'll all be there. I mean, the city of Rochester will stand behind you. If we don't do it for our children, what are we? What are we?
Agreed. I've put my contact information in the chat, so my email is there.
Second time, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I forgot to put my mobile phone in there the first time around. So my mobile is there as well. Call anytime.
Excellent.
Oh, good.
Not at midnight or so, but
You never know.
I wake up real early in the morning. But yeah, I just everything that's been said so far by Mary, and is it Lentory?
Lentory, yeah.
Everything that you've said, it just really resonates. And I know, you know, when I think of my own family with my own 4 children in the district, we are relatively privileged compared to many of the other families in the district. And my kids have access to things that maybe other families do not. And so that's not lost on me. But I am committed to helping to create an infrastructure where we are accountable, where we are focused on equity, right? It's not equality, it's equity, right?
Yes.
How do we make that, how do we realize that? And I think one way that that we make that a reality is perhaps through community schools in areas that need community schools. And I think that there has been a focus on that by, you know, not only our former mayor, but also by our current mayor. And I hope that we continue moving forward. I will certainly be pushing for that, but it is time for action. And I've lived in Rochester now for 25 years, and I've watched the decline of this school system. I did my student teaching at East High School back in 1999, and then began teaching And I've really seen the decline in the district, and it isn't just one thing. It's not just because of poverty. Poverty's always been an issue here in Rochester. It's always been around. But a decline in like programming. I used to be a French teacher, and I did a lot of my work. I'm a social studies teacher now, but learning a foreign language was my ticket out of poverty when I was a Rotary exchange student in between high school and college. And then I came to U of R. So I've had many opportunities that I was able to use, and certainly I know it's not lost on me that my skin tone has helped me in getting out of poverty. It's a lot easier for people who are in my situation to get out of poverty at times than other people. I've been blessed with a lot in life. But how do we create this social capital opportunities for our current students? I believe that we get that through partnerships with so many of our community organizations. For me, learning a foreign language and then coming, it was through Rotary that helped me. After that, I was able to become a French teacher, and I went to Wilson Magnet High School just to make observations there during my student teaching at East. And they had an IB French program, right? That was back in 1999. I don't think there are any, I don't think they still teach French anywhere in the district, right? And it's predominant, I mean, Spanish is offered, but they're cutting right and left. Yes. Our foreign language offerings are lacking. And why aren't we offering programs like Arabic? We have a number of Arabic speakers in the district. Why aren't we offering Mandarin? Why aren't we offering languages that you see in places like Brighton? We should be providing this and encouraging students to have that. Again, I'm going off a little off topic here, but it's when we're designing programming, we need to make sure that there's equitable access to that programming too. And I'm committed to that.
Amy, where do you teach now?
I'm a social studies teacher at Brighton High School.
Okay.
But I started off in the city and went to Churchville. Had to convince people to hire me as a social studies teacher. There weren't any jobs in French at the time. So
Brighton High School at one time, I don't know now, was considered one of the best in New York State.
Indeed.
I live in a street that half is Brighton and half is city.
Right. And, they used to have Russian.
Different world's education system. So let's always think children, and it's the only way out of poverty, education and good jobs.
Agreed.
We need to also be aware of the redlining that went on in this community, all the things that went on over the last 50 or 100 years that mean that the white community bought a house, 50 years ago and added to it and built up their wealth, whereas the black community and brown community was pushed down, really.
Absolutely.
But
today the black community doesn't have the education and jobs.
Well, even if they have the education and jobs, it's easier said than done to turn around and really pull yourself up by the bootstraps when you don't have much.
Education's a key.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of keys, and it's not at least going to be lost on this discussion, because there's also things that have been taken away. For instance, like trades, that are not
That's what I would like to mention too.
in our areas anymore. And these are programs that would be valued. They are another key to successful job and having a successful life.
Yes.
And so I say, and not to be disrespectful to anyone, but when you are not enmeshed in the nonsense, people will sell you anything.
Yeah.
And like I said, and listening to Amy, and I thank you for your forthrightness.
Yes, Amy.
I do not think you were off key at all. There's a lot of issues, but if we don't take and fully pull the scarf from around our eyes, or taking a good deep look in it, there hasn't been anything that's been happening that has added to the growth. Every year they cut away.
Yep.
And I can tell you this because Brighton School is still probably one of the better schools. And I also know that when we look at private schools, they're doing something far different. And they are teaching the French and they are doing the Spanish. But everybody cannot afford to send their kids to those schools. But I tell parents all the time in my community, look at some of these schools and look at their curriculum. It is shameful to feel like so much is being taken away from schools that should be free. Free schools were never anything to be ashamed of
No.
when I was younger.
And they were
But
good.
now they're diminishing that.
I think that just if I could add just a couple more things, and I'm sorry to monopolize the time here, but I've been working a lot too just with on the food service issue in our district and comparing the food. And this is not to denigrate in any way the hard workers in our district who are serving every single day. You know, their hands are tied in many ways on what is served to our students because of financial reasons and what we're reimbursed by the federal government and the state. But every other school district, for the most part, invests a portion of its own budget into the food service program. And we don't currently invest our own funds. We're getting like reimbursed. We invest very little of our own. And so one thing I'm trying to bring attention to, and I know other organizations have been working on this for years and years, I'm relatively new to it, but just the investment or pushing in our next budget to begin investment of at least $1 million more into our food service programs so that we can try to do more farm to table and more locally sourced options for our students and working to make our menus healthier, but also more culturally responsive and reflective of what students are perhaps eating at home with their families. And so I think that's one way that we help to level the playing field between communities. We have to invest those funds into that program as well. But then I was also going to mention that I just got back from the National School Board Association conference in Washington, D.C. I was there with President Elliott as well as with Commissioner Powell and had the opportunity to learn how to lobby for the things that we need. And, you know, they had students who came to speak with us. And that was the most valuable part of the entire weekend for me, was listening to students from across the country and what they need and what they're feeling they need in education today. And these three young men who spoke said, you know, in terms of curriculum, they want more information about like how to buy your first home. They want classes devoted to how do you open a bank account, you know, personal finance related. And that struck me, particularly because it came from a student who it was from a Black student who was from Virginia, but who was talking about generational poverty and how students don't necessarily know how to do those things when they, you know, graduate from high school. And so he was talking about some of the essential skills that he felt students needed. And I think that also has to be part of this conversation, that we are teaching those things in schools and offering courses that are reflective of that type of personal finance and just access to, you know, applying for a mortgage, this type of thing. And it came from students who wanted that. Kids want this stuff.
Amy, do you know Judge Nympho? He does volunteer work, goes into schools, and does his program, but not all the schools are hip on it. I don't know. I'm not sure. But my suggestion is to look, and he does exactly what you're talking about, all volunteers. And just see, you know, what maybe schools he's been in or goes into. It would be terrific. And
Nympho, you said?
Nympho, Judge Nympho.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I could ask, Amy, it's hard for me to get your phone number because I'm on mobile, and I'm not as good with mobile.
No
so
problem.
If I could get your number, I really would appreciate it. And I might be a little older than maybe some of you on this conference.
Oh, I know spring chicken.
I dare say. But some of the things that you're talking about and the student brought to your attention, they used to have that. We used to actually bring our pennies to school and bank. we used to talk about home economics and be a part of a home economics class. There is so much that has been taken away. And I
Amen.
know on some of the younger ones, maybe y'all have forgot it. I have not. Like I said, there was a time when going to a public school wasn't anything where you didn't have exposure to many, many different things. But all of these things have gone away, even books, because when you're copying book work and sending it home to kids and not providing them a book so they can advance or go to the library and get it, that's an impediment in and of itself.
Amen.
Absolutely.
And Eleanor knows I constantly push I'm from Buffalo, and these trades started in Burgard and McKinley High School in Buffalo, New York, where they brought the trades into the school. And let me tell you, folks, a BA in Shakespeare, fixing a car is worth a lot more money today than a BA in Shakespeare. But now they've taken them, they've put all these courses out to MCC, and our kids can't even get through the high school to get MC. And some of these are real talented kids. I couldn't fix a plug. So, I mean, that has to be brought back to the schools, Amy. And our children have to have a choice there, not just MCC. Eleanor knows more about it too.
And they also they have a program. I don't know if it's still open with Oasis, but it's for adults who are looking to get their GED. But why do we, have to wait until they're out of school when it could prevent them from needing a GED because they have some inspiration and something to work towards that looks relevant to what they want to do in their future. So I think we should really, hopefully they will work on that to see what we can do to provide out, because we should be preparing kids to be college or career ready.
Right.
So, doing more
Oasis.
to provide them with careers that they could use that's more beneficial, for some students who are great with their hands. And so we need to, that's where equity needs to be involved as well, because we only focus on one side and another.
Yeah, and not just
Oasis is still Oasis is still very active, and I just heard recently from Don Noto in the Susan B. Anthony district that on Canal Street a lot is happening over there with shops, and East House Corporation is going to be coming in there. But another thing that's supposed to happen there is supposed to bring a trades program over there. So we should be on the lookout for that too.
And hopefully they can offer that to high school students.
Right.
Because Oasis is a great program. I worked on Hart Street for several years, and I would also often utilize their services because they had great programs available. Absolutely. But my only concern is just waiting until they're out of school to begin such a program instead of having it available for our high school students.
Right. Amen. And we should all stand strong and try to get more and more to support that, and ask for the accountability and for our children, especially trades in high schools. Yeah.
When John Lang and I got involved with the Southwest Common Council and the 19th Ward Schools Committee to get School 16 renovated and the kids and the teachers brought back, and then School 10 the same thing. One of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that it came back as a community school similar to 17, which had really blossomed back in the 90s when Ralph Spezio was in charge of that. And one of the things that was obvious was you need to get more local kids into the school rather than having them bus from all over the city. And we've been talking about getting local busing ever since then. And until this year, we didn't seem to get much support from the assembly people we talked to, but I think they're a lot more receptive this year. And we need to pull our make sure we let them know what we need, and I'm hoping that we can get the mayor involved in this also. You know, if we can get local busing for the school district, then we have stronger neighborhood schools, because a lot of parents would pick the nearby school if they weren't going to have to worry about their child walking a mile to get to it, and heaven knows what goes on in that city. Now, just to make sure we all are aware, I don't know if you followed the work we did with Lovely Warren as far as the child safety zone stuff. I don't know if you've read what
Katerina Leone was really part of that work as well.
She started that.
So she gave me a copy of her study.
Yeah, and you know, so it would be, we got the city to do a child safety zone study that they marked off areas that would satisfy the need of a child safety zone, and she was going to look at using equity as a way of pushing for it. And I just got one report from her today which talked about, you know, the distances that kids in Brighton or other districts need to walk. And certainly it depends on the age. You know, if you've got kindergartners through second grade, gee, an eighth of a mile is a long ways for them. And if you've got sixth graders, gee, they'll do a lot further. But we need to get legislation put together, and I don't know if Desmond Meeks is the person to, you know, we need to identify who's going to be writing this, because the legislation we have from the last time that we almost got something passed, which was several years ago, it was talking about half a mile, but for little kids, half a mile is still a long ways.
Yep. Well, we all have to fight for that together. I think we have to grow. Nobody talks about our terrible educational system. I think we all have to work together to keep rising up and getting as much as we can for these children, including neighborhood schools. Are there any PTAs anymore? Is that an obsolete word? I mean,
yes, I know at School 16 we do have a PTA. We have meetings as well. The outcome has not been as great due to COVID, so we do provide online PTA meetings, but we also provide parent workshops there as well.
Because the schools have to be welcoming and opening up to the parents too. A parent, that's their child. And the schools have got to, it's got to be a two-way street here too.
And I know the distance that, you know, families live from their school is such a barrier to involvement outside of the school day, right? You know, in college, I didn't have a car or any money, and so I relied upon RTS for all of my transportation needs. And so I can't even imagine what that would be like with a stroller and two kids in tow, right? Like, I can't even imagine. And I had to get to my student teaching placements, you know, RTS, and it's just such a barrier for our families, and that's all the more reason to push for community, neighborhood-based community schools, where people have access to their health care that they need, child care, all in the same vicinity. They're doing this in other states, you know, that's the thing that gets me. They're doing this in Northern Virginia.
Well, let's get organized. The most important things in this city are our children, and let's organize.
We should also look, you know, I keep hearing, well, we got too much space in the schools, but if you really put together community schools where you have support services in the schools, a lot of that extra space could be used by some of those agencies that, you know, would benefit from being there on the spot to render their services.
I still say any extra money that's received should go into the children for extra tutorial. Lee, that's wonderful what you do. Our children, especially in the younger years, extra tutorial, extra help, give that little boost, and then school isn't that bad. And that's where the money should be going into. It should be going into the children, period. So it's important.
Okay.
John, did you want to talk about the race forum? You touched on local busing update.
Yeah, the Rochester Coalition for Public Education has been looking a lot at the race forum and trying to get as much education for the people in the committee, because, you know, unless you experience a lot of the racism firsthand because you were the butt of the racism, it's easy for white people to be oblivious to what's going on. You know, I wonder a lot what was going on back where I grew. I grew up in central Massachusetts. I was born in Belgium, came here when I was 7. And in the Holden area there, we had a regional high school that included 5 townships. It wasn't until I think my senior year that we had a black student in the school. Now, I don't know what the heck, you know, we had a fair number of Puerto Rican, you know, if you would say what's the minority in that neck of the woods, it was Puerto Rican, and they were, you know, we didn't run into any problems there. But black student, we had a black teacher before we had a black student, which you wonder, how did this happen that in this part of Massachusetts we had that much, you know, I don't know if I call it segregation, as I don't know. We had quite a few people in Boston, you know, black neighborhoods in Boston. But you know, after the last 10 years or so, as we've become more aware of the disparity of opportunities that the black communities had because of redlining and things of that nature, we've become more aware of it. But still, I know the coalition has been doing a lot of work trying to take some of the recommendations from the RAISE forum and implement them. I know one of the things they were wondering was there's been a new person in charge of the work that the RAISE forum had done, Courtney, since what was the name of the previous gentleman? Anyways, pardon? Well, so they've been doing a good bit there, but one of the problems that sometimes we've had with that group, which constitutes past superintendents, past principals, or I don't know if we have any current principals there, but a lot of education-related individuals, people who are, you know, in the colleges, and we've had Peter McWalters. I don't know if you remember Peter from when he was superintendent in Rochester. That goes back to when my kids were in school. But we've had very few minorities get involved with the group, and I would welcome anybody who'd like to attend some of these groups. They've got a meeting this Friday starting at 4 o'clock. We're trying to get a good diverse group there, and they have a lot of horsepower when it comes to understanding all the educational issues that go into a school. But of course, the main issues that are hurting us right now are not necessarily the lack of skill of the teachers. It's been, a lot of it has been, you know, like we're not going to bus kids half a mile to get them to a neighborhood school. We'll bus them a mile and a half or more to, you know, in the managed school choice program. So changing some of the things that are going on, I hear a lot of, oh, it's too expensive to do that. Well, you're going to tell me that it's too expensive to bus a kid a half a mile when you don't think it's too expensive to bus them a mile and a half, and all the harm that it does to the school. You know, if you don't have parents able to get to their child's school to participate in programs and to learn what's going on in the school and what can they do to help their child, you know, you're just hurting the education process. And yet here we are, we've been fighting for this for 9 years now, and it's still up for debate, you know.
But some of the parents were in the same school situations that their children are in, and they didn't have luck in it. I don't know. I mean, it's today. Are they redlining today, or is there not economic equality today that gives a person the same as the next person to buy a house wherever they want? And I'm just saying economic equality comes through good education and good jobs.
Yep.
And that just seems to be lacking.
Did the board members get a chance to talk with some of the new assembly and senators to feel them out on what support they were going to give the school system?
You know, some of us have had more conversations than others, just from proximity. A lot of stuff has been happening in just the last 2 months or so.
Yeah.
But those are ongoing discussions and meetings that we're having. We haven't met as an entire group. Obviously, that would be a public meeting. But I know a number of us have been meeting privately with as many people as possible. You know, I know Sarah Clark has been coming into our schools, Damon Meeks, Harry, of course. But we're also getting a lot of support from, you know, Senator Cooney has been in a lot of our schools as well, and Samra. So I think that the support is there. I think that these conversations, especially surrounding how we're going to be spending the increase in foundation aid, and a lot of organizations are giving us advice on how to best spend those funds. In fact, I actually am going to be leaving in a few minutes to go to the children's agenda meeting that I have a little bit later. But yeah, I think that these are going to be ongoing conversations. So they are taking place, but it really depends on the commissioner at this point, how much of those conversations are taking place.
Amy, you don't hear anything about lead poisoning anymore. Do they test children in school? Where are we on this? I haven't heard.
Right, and I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with that issue, but I believe that's more the pediatricians that are testing kids at this point. I know that there was a push a few years back by all school districts in the surrounding areas and communities, certainly where I work, right, to replace some of the piping that comes into schools. I know that there was a move for that, but I'd have to ask our facilities person, Mike Schmidt, to see what has been done specifically.
And you're right, a lot of our streets had very heavy leaded pipes.
Right. And just so many of our homes were built before, you know, 1920, right? So obviously still an issue. I know the city is on that as well. On streets, I'm seeing replacement pipes being put in everywhere. So that's something I'll have to look into.
If there's monies coming in, it should be coming in for the children in all aspects.
Right. And I think those wouldn't be funds that we would necessarily be using that are coming into us. I think that comes from a different pot at the state level and local level. What that pot is, I'm not exactly familiar with.
You've been great, Amy. You really answered and tried to answer everything.
I am actually really looking forward to coming back again to speak with all of you. And I apologize that, you know, just in the first 2 years of my 4-year term, I haven't had the opportunity. There was a lot of craziness early on, and then, you know, we lost a superintendent, and then, you know, now, and then COVID hit, and I think we're just trying to catch our breath at this point. We have 2 new board members. I'm feeling we have new leadership. feeling really positive and that we're going to see some real change effected soon. So keep your head up and your shoulders to the wheel. I know we will. But I just want to say thank you so much for having me tonight. And I have to speed off to this other meeting, but John, if you can send me links, I will try to be here. It sounds like you meet normally on Wednesday evenings.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
One thing that I wanted to check with you is 6 o'clock better for you, or would 7 o'clock as a starting time fit better for the school board members?
Wednesday nights are normally pretty free for me, and I know I'd be free typically between 6 and 9 o'clock at night. Those are normally really great times. I know the children's agenda had scheduled me, and so I think they had changed the time at one point. It was supposed to have been earlier, but then they asked if they could do later. So I apologize, I can't stay longer. But Wednesday night is generally a really good time for most board members, I would say, because we don't have other scheduled meetings. Because Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be bad for RCSD commissioners.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for coming, and we'll keep you in the loop, definitely.
Thank you so much. And I really believe in this community, and I know that the time for action is now.
Yeah.
But I remain optimistic, and I know we can create a better system, but it means it's not just from me or for anyone else on the board. It is it's the entire community, listening to parents and listening to people who don't look like me, right? Like listening to everyone and help making them feel like they have a voice and that they're part of that process. So I remain committed to that.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And I'm going to try to get some of the Assembly and senators to join us at some point, whether it'll be one at a time or more than one. But we really need to get the ball rolling, and the first thing will be who writes up some new legislation for local busing. And I think Desmond Meeks might be a person to try to get that going with. And got to do some calling of people between meetings. That's always
or maybe to go out and talk to neighborhood groups too, John.
We've right now the big question is how much should we wade out into the COVID problems out there?
I know.
And so anyways, are there some other things? Let's see. I mentioned
You actually are at walk-in items now.
Walk-in items, yes. Is there something that somebody would like to bring up that we should be addressing, or just to put us in the loop on some things going on out there? Fantasia, anything?
Right now we're just, waiting on board for anyone in the city who needs help, and, definitely the need. I know that I was reaching out to Courtney too, to get in touch with the mayor and work on those initiatives and see what is needed for the city. And see which ways that we can be the helping hand. So I'm planning to set that up. So of course, anyone can reach out to me too if you have any needs for the city, and we can definitely speak with our board and our group of volunteer members to see how we can help the city.
Great.
Wonderful.
Very good. Mia, anything at School 16?
We've just been pushing forward, trying to really focus on that parent engagement and, the community, getting them into the school. So tomorrow we are providing a parent workshop, health and wellness in the new year. I have a nurse from the school district who will be coming in and presenting to parents to let them, know just different strategies and things they can do with their children to help keep them safe, and what is the protocol that they're currently doing, in our current time. So that's what we're working on, just trying to connect, parents and community resources. So that's our goal.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we hoped would happen as we get to community school there is to possibly offer courses that parents might be interested in taking, and be able to refer people to Oasis or various continuing education sort of programs. That'll be good if the school can get involved in that sort of thing. Anything else you'd like to talk on, Lentory? Are you there, Lentory? You may have stepped away. Okay. Anything else you can think of we should touch on, Eleanor?
No, I think we're good to go.
We're good to go, and it's 7:06, so
Not bad.
not bad. Well, it was a pleasure having you all here, and we'll try to keep in touch. If there's any need that comes up that we should have an extra meeting sometime, don't hesitate to call us, and or if you have a speaker that you'd like to bring in, that's always a possible. Let's talk, a few days ahead of the meeting so that we don't have 5 speakers coming in the same day. But okay, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot, you guys.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Good night. Stay safe.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, John, I'm going to close out, but that means
Okay, close us
everybody's
out.
gone.
You're the boss.
I'm the boss. All right. Take care.
Take care. Oh, I sent you an email, by the way. Check your.
Okay.